William Jefferson Clinton on Monday, April 17th, 1995. Of course, I will link to the text of this executive order from Wikisource in the show notes for this video, as always. But I wanted to draw your attention through this voluminous document, specifically to section 3.4 on automatic declassification. And paragraph A here reads in part, subject to paragraph B below, within 5 years from the date of this order, i.e. the year 2000, all classified information contained in records that 1. Are more than 25 years old, and 2. Have been determined to have permanent historical value, shall be automatically declassified whether or not the records have been reviewed. Yay, everyone celebrate. So, in the year 1995, Clinton promised that by the year 2000, all responsive documents to this executive order over 25 years old would be automatically declassified. And of course, there were a bunch of exemptions that had to take place here. Of course, they're not going to reveal anything about weapons of mass destruction or cryptologic systems or blah, 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 national security, this or that. Of course, but at any rate, it certainly did mean millions of new documents would be declassified. And well, there were other executive orders signed by Bush and Obama that modified this one, but at any rate, it did go ahead. And so the CIA's response to this, the Central Intelligence Agency, was something called CREST. And reading from the CIA's own CREST page, it says that since 2000, i.e. the year that this executive order went into effect, the CIA has installed and maintained an electronic full-text searchable system named CREST, the CIA Records Search Tool. It's the publicly accessible repository of the subset of CIA records reviewed under the 25-year program in electronic format. So it's not all of the records, but it's the electronic format version records. They did make available to the public via CREST in the year 2000, but one tiny little caveat there. They were only available physically for visitors at the National Archives at College Park, Maryland. That's right, there were a grand total of 4 computers shoved in the back of a library that no one could access, basically. It was extremely hard to get here. People in the records department didn't even know that this existed and wouldn't be able to direct people to this. But these 4 computers were, up until this point, the only place where people could actually access these documents that the CIA was, quote-unquote, making available to the public. Right? Well, obviously not. So, in the New York Times puff piece on this, they note that after journalists at Muckrock, a news site, filed Freedom of Information Act requests for access to the CREST database, the CIA said in 2015 that it would take 28 years to publish. In 2015, the agency cut its estimate to 6 years and said the documents would be delivered on 1,200 compact discs at the price of $108,000. Put off by what he perceived as stalling, Mr. Best, a researcher and journalist, crowdfunded $15,000 to print, scan, and publish the files himself. And in October, the CIA said it would post the files. That's right, here is the actual Kickstarter that Michael Best started for that. He was asking for $10,000, he got $15,000. The idea was he was going to physically go here and print off and scan all of the documents, the whole 930,000 documents here, and put them online at the Internet Archive. Still a ridiculous process, but still a lot quicker and ultimately cheaper, i.e. free, than the CIA offered alternative. Well, at any rate, I guess he called their bluff because, well, here it is. Here is the CREST program. Right? 25-year program archive, and they've finally connected it to the internet. And here are some of the categories here, and here is the search bar where you can actually search for things. So on that note, I'm going to be starting an open source investigation into this. And here's a little article that I wrote up with introducing the archive and talking about some of the journalism that I've seen coming out of this. I've seen this break down into a few different categories. For example, you have these types of articles from RT and others. UFO sightings and psychic powers revealed in newly released CIA docs. And all of these are silly BuzzFeed-ish type viral articles with silly GIF files. Basically just saying, hey, look, the CIA is all into UFOs and psychics, and oh, it's so cool. Which, I mean, there is, for example, an entire section here for Project Stargate links, and there's all sorts of documents in here, so you can go through and see what they have in there. But this, of course, all goes and swirls around that program, which was talked about by John Ronson and popularized in the Hollywood movie of his book by CFR stooge George Clooney. So I think this is largely a type of limited hangout. I think there probably is much more to this type of information, but I don't think you're probably going to find the deepest levels of it in this newly released document archive. But hey, what do I know? Maybe there's some smoking gun documents in there. The other types of journalism that I've seen are, for example, like this New York Times piece on it. They basically say, hey, look, guys, a new declassified archive, 930,000 searchable documents just went online. And they talk about some of the documents, including some of the, of course, the psychics and psychic spies and that kind of stuff, the cool stuff, and then the fun kind of stuff, recipes for invisible ink or how to open sealed letters, and really important stuff like the files of Henry Kissinger or a description of the Berlin Tunnel and things like this. So they kind of just throw all that together and then just throw their hands up in kind of a journalistic shrug and say, hey guys, there you go, it exists. Another type of article I've seen is like this one from Ynet News. CIA documents reveal immediate lead up to Yom Kippur War, and they talk about some of the backdoor diplomacy that was going on, Kissinger and Meria and others, in the lead up to the Yom Kippur War in 1973, and some of the heavily redacted memos and cables and things that we have now to talk to understand that in slightly better detail. But they basically portray, well, first of all, they take 4 screenshots of different documents. They do not link to the actual documents, although you could link to the documents, but they take screenshots of the documents and then interpret them for you and basically say, yep, it's just what everyone always thought all along. It was a surprise attack out of the blue. There might have been an inkling or two, but no one really was expecting what happened, and oh, poor Israel. Interestingly, if you go to the alternative universe, like Penny for Your Thoughts, you'll find them picking apart that Ynet article and showing the exact same documents and interpreting them in the exact opposite direction, namely that Yom Kippur War was an act of aggression by Israel. I think there's a lot of nuance to this story. There's a number of layers to it, but I think this gives you an indication of just how this type of reporting can be used to spin these documents in one way or another very easily. And it's important to keep in mind there are alternative readings. Just don't take someone's word for a summary or a synopsis of what's being said. Think about it for yourself. So I'll put, of course, those links are in this article that I've written up on the open source investigation, so you can read through them yourself. The other type of article that I've found reporting on this CIA records archive is enraging, absolutely enraging. This is the reason the corporate report exists, in a nutshell. Here we have the Daily Fail, secret 1983 CIA intelligence report suggested America should encourage Saddam Hussein to attack Syria to secure oil pipeline to the Mediterranean and the Gulf. All right. An important article about an important document, and they do put some context to this and explain a little bit about the context and what was going on and who was talking to who, and oh yeah, this document was written by Graham Fuller in 1983. Yes, that Graham Fuller, and if you do not know Graham Fuller, please type "who is Graham Fuller" into my search bar, and all will be revealed. But at any rate, Graham Fuller writing this memo in 1983 talking about how basically Iraq had to be urged to take the war to Syria, even as, of course, they were fighting Iran at the time, but they had to open up that front because of the pipeline and all of this. So machinations, intelligence machinations going on 25 years ago, let alone what's going on today. And aimed at the same family, not the same person, but Assad pair rather than Assad feast. But there you go. So an interesting and important document, and there is some context here, but they don't link to the document. In fact, they don't even say where this document came from. They just say there's this 1983 CIA report, secret 1983 CIA intelligence report. They do not say where it came from. They do not say how they got access to it. They do not say that it exists online. They do not link to it. You're just supposed to read this and just take their word for everything. That is enraging. So, in the spirit of teaching a man to fish, let me show you exactly how you can find this document. So they have this right up on the document, and this is British English, so the single quotation marks are direct quotations from the document itself. So let's just take that phrase, urging Iraq to take the war to Syria, and go to the Crest archive, and as you see, I've already pasted it in here, and search. And when you get the search results, The very first one, bringing real muscle to bear against Syria. September 14th, 1983. Yeah, that looks about right. And when you click through, oh yes, all of the phrases that are there, hammerlock and all of that are reported on in this article. Hammerlock, for example. There it is, because this is the actual document itself. And yes, when you go down, there's Grainfuller's signature. So this is the document they're talking about. But for some reason, they didn't want you to have that URL. They didn't want you to actually look at the document yourself. That is enraging to me, and that's exactly why I started the Corbett Report, for that type of nonsense. I want you to have access to it, to understand how to access this. I want you to see that you are an important part of this. You are not just a passive observer of these stories that come and go. You are someone who can actually participate in this and read through it yourself. And I agree, there needs to be contextualization and people who understand the context and what was going on and why this is important. It's good for them to write it up, but link to the document itself. It takes zero effort. All they want to do is, it's stupid dinosaur media editors and that think that they still exist in 1983 when they would just have to report on it and you would just read it in the newspaper, and they obviously wouldn't reprint the entire report. They'd just talk about the report, and what are you going to do? I guess you could physically go to an archive and look at it, but barring that, what are you going to do? Well, this is the internet age. Wake up, stupid dinosaur media. This is why you are being replaced, is precisely for nonsense like this. So anyway, in this article that I wrote up, I, of course, did link to the document as well, so you can get the link there. So, this is going to be a new open source investigation. I basically want the Corbett Report community to come out and to contribute to this. What can you find? What is worth looking at in this archive? Obviously, I'm not expecting that all will be revealed and we'll find out the secret hidden truths of 9/11 or whatever. But there are documents worth looking at in here. Documents on the torture program and other things. Even though it hasn't been 25 years, some documents related to that are in this are available in this search. So by all means, go for it. Find what you can find. Link to some documents, talk about them, talk about the reporting about these documents. I'm very interested to hear what you guys out there can unearth, especially in light of our recent biometric ID grid open source investigation. If you haven't checked that out, nearly 100 comments and quite thorough, and I still haven't finished. I'm about to. Don't worry, guys, I am going to finish. But we got dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of countries, all with their different biometric ID programs documented here, talking about when they were launched and what it involves. And as one of the as No Soap Radio points out in the comments here, it's one thing to kind of know this in a general sense, and there is a coordinated international plan to roll out biometric ID with digital photographs and fingerprints. It's another thing to actually see it laid out like this in every single country around the world. The exact same, of course, ICAO setting international standards for exactly how these types of cards are supposed to function, and these passports and what have you, and what, taking the fingerprints and all of that. It is a system that is being slotted into place, and this type of open source investigation can help us understand that. So hopefully this investigation on this new CIA records archive will find some things that are worth looking at and worth talking about. I'm looking forward, as I say,